Thank you for coming this evening. Welcome to Dartmouth's International Overdose Awareness Event. I just want to let you know that logistic-wise, if anyone needs to use a restroom, they're located inside the building. You can go up the stairs when you're looking at the front of the building, to your left. You'll be entering then, you'll go up the stairs, you'll be on our second floor. And if you look to the main hallway in the middle, there is a hallway that has the elevator, and just beyond that are the restrooms. If you have difficulty going upstairs, you can go around the back of the building and enter the first floor, take the elevator up one level, and you'll find the restrooms. That's, a particularly important thing. I also want to let you know that I have several speakers this evening, but throughout the event, please make sure that you visit JoJo's Coffee Truck. Their caffeinated and non-caffeinated items, as well as some pastries, are on us. Thank you for coming. I am Heidi Silva Brooks, the chair of DART, which stands for Dartmouth's Advocates for Addiction Recovery and Treatment. Our task force has been charged to support and promote the efforts across Dartmouth to educate our community on addiction, recovery, and treatment. I'm also a member of the Dartmouth Select Board and someone impacted by addiction, recovery, and loss. I am joined tonight by Dolores Joseph, Vice Chair of DART. Give her a wave. Dolores has been the behind-the-scenes coordinator, organizing our materials and community resources. In her role as youth advocate, she is one of the contacts for anyone in Dartmouth who needs assistance with addiction, recovery, and treatment. Matthew Dansereau, there's Matthew with his cap on, there he is. He's our engagement and outreach coordinator. He's located at the Maria Connor Center for Active Living, otherwise known as the Council on Aging building. Maura Reimer, our public health nurse, works alongside Chris Michaud. Chris is also here from our public health department. They, as well as every adjustment counselor and school counselor in the school department, are resources to all of us. Please pass the word to those in need to hear it. You're not alone. There are plenty of individuals ready to support you, because together we can. On behalf of the families here to honor their loved ones lost to an overdose, I thank you for entrusting our community to share that love and loss. Tonight marks Dartmouth's second annual event to honor the efforts of International Overdose Awareness Group. Dartmouth hopes to continue to hold this event annually on the Thursday prior to Labor Day weekend. Last year, we hosted a regional event extending invitations to the communities within Bristol County. This year, other communities are hosting their own event. New Bedford held theirs on Tuesday night with approximately 250 people in attendance. Taunton on Wednesday, and this Saturday, August 31st, the actual International Overdose Awareness Day. Events will be held in Fall River and Marion, as well as throughout the world. Tonight is an evening to remember without stigma those who have died from an overdose and acknowledge the grief of the families and friends left behind. The theme of this year's International Overdose Awareness event is Together We Can. While a lofty goal, it is true, only working together will we eradicate the impacts of substance use disorder, as well as the impacts of recreational drug use. No one enters a relationship with substances believing that it will take their life. However, due to a number of factors beyond their control, we have lost loved ones to accidental overdoses or poisonings. No matter how we choose to rationalize what has happened to our loved one, the bottom line is that they are no longer with us. And those remaining are left with a hole and a loss for the rest of our lives. Tonight, we are blessed to have a variety of speakers having this topic from different angles. The first speaker this evening will be Joanne Peterson. Joanne founded Learn to Cope 20 years ago. Learn to Cope is an organization dedicated to supporting loved ones of those impacted by substance use disorder. Over the past 20 years, Learn to Cope has grown from a one group of parents meeting on a porch to a nationally recognized movement. Joanne?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me here tonight, Heidi, and I see some familiar faces in the crowd. I see Carl Alves, who is a great support to Learn to Cope as a board member, and just many friends and family members coming to honor their loved ones. So as Heidi mentioned, Learn to Cope started 20 years ago. So for me, that's 2 decades. For me and thousands of families, that's 2 decades of loss. I'll never forget when we first started in 2004 in a little room saying, wow, we've been lucky we haven't lost anyone yet, because there was a big story in the Boston Herald. And it wasn't even maybe 3 days after that we had our first loss within our group. And it was shocking and devastating. And even though 20 years ago, every loss that we have now is still always shocking and devastating. Within Learn to Cope, we're a statewide organization, so we have groups all over the state, in person and on Zoom. We have a national group where we have other family members from all over the country that join. And I can tell you, living in Massachusetts, we are fortunate because we have so many more resources than some states do. And I hesitated to say on that national Zoom meeting, we haven't had a loss yet. And I was careful not to say that. And when I started to think it wasn't long before there was that first loss. The hard thing for this group is they don't have warm hugs, they don't have porches or friends that they can go visit. They just know each other from little squares on the screen. We have Spanish-speaking Learn to Cope groups, and through COVID, those started. And when we tried to start them before COVID, people weren't coming because of fear and stigma. And then once we started groups on Zoom for Spanish-speaking families, they started to come. And now we have people coming from other countries because they're letting their families know that there's a place that they can go to actually get help, to be heard, just to be listened to share their grief. And grief comes, as we all know here, in so many different forms. I'm going to talk to you tonight about a young woman, my niece Janine, who we lost in 2018. And the grief that she had started when she was a little girl, because my sister, her mother, was so highly affected by substance use disorder with alcohol and severe mental illness. So my mother and I became her surrogate parents, really, for many years, and she just banged around the world full of trauma and grief of not having a mom in her life that could take care of her. And then finally she started to use the opioids that I always feared that she would. I'm very fortunate because my son, so far today, survived this and is in many years of recovery. But when we lost Janine, it really reminded me of how it doesn't matter how much you are educated or how much you help other people. These drugs will kill anybody and everybody, no matter what. We don't have control over that. What we do have control over is getting educated and educating other people, and that's what's so important about nights like this. I was at one of these in East Hampton the other night, same thing. Just people coming out, just wanting to honor their beautiful family members. And it just makes me angry that we still have to do this. Back in 2007, myself and a group of a couple of parents drove to Abingdon, Virginia, and I testified at the hearings for the Purdue Pharma, the 3 executives that, under Richard Sackler, the owner, the family that owns Purdue Pharma, they carried out some really evil deeds, which we know much more about today since the lawsuits that former Attorney General, now Governor Healey, put up against them. And now we are getting millions and millions of dollars from those lawsuits. And if you can get involved in anything, get involved in that, where that money will be spent, and make sure it gets spent for victims, for people that need treatment, and not on potholes and road work. So that's my biggest thing today. But I just think back to 2007, sitting there and looking them in the eye and saying to them, I represent a group with 400 parents, thinking that was such a huge number of people. And I said to them, you're responsible for many deaths and years of generations of trauma that to come. And they just kept their heads down. One of them smirked. Another mom was there, and she held up her son's ashes in an urn. And I think if you saw the movie Dope Sick, they covered that. And she held up that urn, and she said, it took me 11 years to conceive this child, and it took your drug 1 year to take him out. And that was one of the most powerful things I had ever witnessed in my life. Little to be known that back then, this was just going to get worse and worse. Within Learn to Cope, we have so many groups and so many families, and also other groups that we collaborate with, the grief groups, SAD-OD. Learn to Cope has had to start another group called Still Learning, Still Coping, because people have lost one person and they still have another person that's active, and then they feel like they have nowhere to go. They don't want to traumatize people going to one group that, you know, their first night, they don't want to talk about the death of their loved one, so they stayed silent. So now they can do both. They can go to one group and talk about their loved one that still needs help, and then they can go to the other one and talk about their loss. Even in that, there was stigma. I remember going to a grief group one time myself, and I didn't want to speak up because everybody there they lost their sons or daughters or family members to different diseases. And I was afraid to raise my hand and say what my family member lost her life to. I just didn't feel comfortable. So now, with team sharing, SAD-OD, so many different resources out there today, the difference between today and 20 years ago is this, what you see tonight. People literally just coming out and not being afraid to talk about it, never letting people forget their loved ones. My niece here on my shirt left behind a beautiful young man. He's just starting his sophomore year in college. And one of the major initiatives that we're looking at today is helping kids that have lost their parents. He lost his mother 6 years ago, and then he just lost his father last summer, so he's an orphan. He's an 18-year-old orphan. But we have each other, and we support him while he's in school. But think about these kids that don't really have a voice. Think about the young ones that are living either with their grandparents who are struggling to take care of them. Some of them might be retired and living on a fixed income, or they might be wanting to retire and they can't afford to because they have to try and provide for the children. They might have aging parents. They might still have a son or daughter in college, and now they have an infant. So we have to start taking care of the children too. The children are really left behind in this. You don't hear a lot about them. And sometimes they can go to school, and the schools might not even know that they lost their parents. They might not know the story behind why they live with their grandparents. It's not because of stigma. It's still something that not everybody is comfortable talking about. So I guess my message tonight is one of hope that, yes, 20 years later, I can say that there are these vigils all over the state. They're right now in other areas. Back in those days, there was one. It was on the North Shore, and I'm not sure if any of you know Mary Wheeler from Lynn, but she's an angel, a walking angel with wings. And I remember saying to her, let's have a vigil on the South Shore on the same night that you have yours on the North Shore. And that night, there was hundreds of people that came out honoring their loved ones. And it's just nice to see now that this is just something that we can all rely on going to and just meet other people that know how we feel. Just like regular any support system with any disease, there should always be places where people can go, where they can just talk to people and just be treated like a regular person. And grief, I think grief has been a way of life really for a lot of us. For me, I lost my brother 12 years ago because of addiction. He died on Long Island in Quincy in a sober home. And he died not of an overdose, but of a lot of effects on his heart and diseases that he had from his addiction. And then my sister, with her alcoholism and mental illness, she's now in a nursing home. So grief is something I'm used to living with. But when you lose somebody to death, that grief is just, I don't need to tell many people that are here what that's like. So I'm just happy to be here to help educate and just speak up, keep speaking up, and keep honoring your loved ones like you're doing already. And maybe someday we can say that those numbers go down, because I have never seen them really go down. Every year they're up, every year. And it's a really scary thing. We have to do something about it. I don't know what the answer is. I've been trying to find that for 20 years. And we're all getting tired. We're getting tired. So thank you, and I'm so sorry for anyone here that I can see out in the crowd that has lost children and loved ones and brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and cousins and nieces and nephews and friends. And thank you for coming out and not being afraid to be seen in a crowd, because this can happen to anybody. Addiction doesn't care what you do for a job. It doesn't care. You can be a judge, you can be a doctor, you can be a nurse, you can be a police officer. Believe me, we have them all coming to our meetings discreetly. But the good news is our meetings are still very private, and confidentiality is key. But I just honor people that come out and don't worry about being seen, because that's the only way that we're ever going to snuff out stigma, and maybe someday we'll snuff out this epidemic. So thank you for listening to me, and it was nice to meet you. And thank you for doing such great work.
Thank you, Joanne. To some of us, Joanne is that angel who walks the earth. The number of families that over the 20 years have been impacted and have found a place to talk openly about their loved ones and receive support and resources through Learn to Cope is immense. As Joanne mentioned, Learn to Cope has the face-to-face as well as online Zoom meetings. At those meetings, the face-to-face meetings, you can get Narcan and training, and we offer Narcan and training here tonight at our resource tables. As Joanne mentioned, although these face-to-face meetings began in Massachusetts, we had members that relocated to Florida and took the Learn to Cope model to Florida, but now, really a pivot through COVID, Zoom meetings continue supporting loved ones all over the United States, and as she said, even in other countries. It's been amazing. And another group, in addition to the Spanish-speaking group, the Learn to Cope Remembers, the Coping and Still Grieving, there's another group for siblings, which is called the Ripple Effect. These are meetings, all of those are meetings for club members that never wanted to join that club. But thanks to Joanne and all the members of the club, we, the loved ones of someone in addiction, recovery, or treatment, thank you. Before I go on, I just wanted to remind you, over at the purple tablecloth of our Dart with Dolores waving, we have purple lawn flags that we'd like you to write your loved one's name on, decorate it, and you can put it into our lawn as a reminder of our folks that we have lost, not only in Dartmouth. If you're here and you don't live in Dartmouth, please add your loved one's name to our lawn. Our next speaker is a sibling. Sarah is going to join us up here on the podium. She did not lose one, but she lost both brothers to overdoses. Sarah, like her mother Tuesday, who spoke to us last year, lives in this world with memories of lives well lived and futures missed. Thank you, Sarah, for turning your grief into a message. Sarah?
Hello. Okay. What is grief if not love preserving? I don't remember who said this, but it is the outlook I've had to preach to myself over the last 7 years. 7 years ago, on March 5th, I lost my childhood best friend, my older brother Caleb, to opiates. Caleb didn't move to the beat of his own drum. He was the beat that everyone wanted to dance to. Caleb was the embodiment of summer transitioning into fall, basking in the sun while consistently shedding to regrow. He was communal and celebratory, and he was everyone's bestest friend. Having to grow up as a child watching Caleb slip further into addiction was the equivalent of him fading from fall to a harsh, bare winter. His vibrant personality falling off to show his bare bones. He was ashamed and we were helpless. You can't force spring unless the earth is ready, and you can't help an addict who doesn't want help or who can't put pride aside to accept it. Through Caleb's death, I learned to find him throughout it all. I see him in the breeze. I see him in my favorite foods. I see him in every smiling face that I meet. He gave me a different approach to life, that echoes into all of my senses, and sometimes it's difficult to contain. There is a haunting silence between my sister and I now that screams we are the only two left. This has rung in my head since March 14th of 2023. Last year, I lost my oldest brother, Max, to opiates. The last time I spoke at one of these events was actually with him, and now I have to speak in his memory. Although both of them passed from the same thing, both of my griefs are so different. I have to find the words to talk about Max, and it's very hard for me. Maxie was fierce and overflowing with love, and I believe that his long red hair reflected the flame that could never be tamed for life. I believe that he was given that flame to keep him burning through every card he'd been dealt. Max never had it easy, and everything that came towards him was a challenge wrapped in a bow. But he chose to make everyone around him have an easier time. I think Maxie poured the love into others that he craved so badly, and I really hope that he felt it came full circle towards the end. If you take anything away from what I'm saying today, as a family unit, you have to give forgiveness with grace. You must have open arms, open doors, and open hearts. It's a lot easier said than done, but you won't regret doing every possible thing that you could have done at the end of the day. You as an addict have to want the change in your heart. You have to not only want to not hurt those around you anymore, but you have to find the drive within yourself and lean on the people who allow you to. Everyone has to work together in order to make this a progress of healing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your strength, and may your family find comfort in those beautiful memories of Caleb and Max. Our final speaker tonight comes from a different lens, although the same, addiction and overdose, but she is turning her mess into a message. Eileen, may I have you come up?
Hi there. I really want to say one thing to start out. I see all these beautiful pictures of your loved ones, and I certainly hope these cameras can turn themselves around and capture those faces, because I appreciate you sharing them and showing the world that their lives mattered. My son, his picture is at the table that I'm here representing. So I am here representing Team Sharing because they have been a blessing in my life since losing my son. I lost him 11 years ago on Mother's Day after speaking to him 3 hours earlier. No day is a good day to die, but that was especially difficult, thinking I was going to see him again. Since he's passed, it took me a couple of years before I found any support anywhere. Unfortunately, I knew nothing about Learn to Cope, and I'm so grateful to know that organization is here. I knew nothing about any kind of support because of the stigma. But I have since been educating myself, started a grief support group myself in the Worcester area. Yeah, I'm about an hour and a half from here. But I'm here to tell you there are many, many resources available to all of us now who have lost someone to the disease of addiction, whether it is suicide or alcohol or opiates, whatever it is. There are resources available to a variety of different groups of people through SADOD. If you look at the sadod.org website, happy to share that with you. If you want to come and talk to me later, I'll give you my card. I can talk to you offline or anytime. But I did want to share that because that has been a saving grace for me. I have, as she mentioned, I have turned my pain into passion and trying to help other people who have had the loss of someone to overdose. But again, I'm here today not only to bring awareness to everyone, but on behalf of Team Sharing, which is an online grief support group available to anyone who uses Facebook. They are supporting people who have lost someone, a child, to overdose, any type of overdose. Team Sharing supports people in so many ways. They hold Christmas parties for the children of these people that lost their loved ones. My granddaughter has benefited from those Christmas parties. They buy gifts. They celebrate the lives of their loved ones. And they can do that all together without the stigma. So now I will tell you the reason I was asked to come here. Team Sharing, through a process, was approved by the RMV to have overdose awareness license plates created. So you may have seen the license plate over on the table there. And Team Sharing has been approved to get, oh, thank you, he's bringing the license plate up. So we're hoping to get people to sign up and commit to wanting one of these license plates that has the Team Sharing logo on it. When you sign up, this is of course a vanity plate, so it costs $40, which amounts to about 5 cents a day, if I have the math correct. In any event, you can register at the table or use the Venmo code that you see over at the table, and you commit to having this and carrying this license plate around on your vehicle for at least 2 years anyway. And by signing up, you're going to help us to get the RMV to create the plate. You see, we can't have the plate created unless we have 750 people committed to buying a plate. And so once they create the plate, as they do any vanity plate, it's available forever after. And so we're hoping to get some commitments by people to have the plate. This is what you see here. And again, the purpose is to create awareness about overdose, because people need to know. People need to accept, people need to talk about it, and that's how we'll talk about it. Right now, we have about 500 sign-ups, so we need about 2 or 250 more. I think it's actually at 200 more sign-ups. So we are having people like myself, who have had loss, of course, attend all of the vigils that we have around Massachusetts, and asking people to consider signing up for, signing an application and signing up for one of these plates. We accept checks. You can use Venmo, and I can help you when I'm back at the table. But I want you to know I appreciate all of you being here and all the awareness that we're creating just by having the cameras and people show up. And I hope that your vigils, really, the vigils here get larger and larger. They have in the Worcester area as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking your pain and making it your passion. And may you be successful in the license plate. I know when I'm sitting in traffic, I always look at the license plates in front of me, and I see Cape Cod and the islands and, fresh water, all of that. And at some point, I hope to be sitting behind a car that has overdose awareness. I think it's one more step into removing that stigma. So it would be nice to have Massachusetts to be a state without stigma. And although Irene said that she hopes that our vigils are larger in attendance, My hope is that we never have to have them again. My hope is that the organizations that are here with us today go out of business because we stop having overdoses, we stop having people succumb to the effects of substance use disorder. I'd also like peace in the world and a cure to cancer. So while I'm hoping, I might as well go for all of them. This concludes tonight's speakers, and may each of their messages bring a level of awareness to you that even in grief, there is light. Please visit our area resource tables and know that there are signs throughout that have a QR code, and if you point your camera to that and take the QR code, it's going to bring you to more resources. Share these resources with friends and loved ones who need them. Let people know they are not alone. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this event. May our loved ones know that they have not been forgotten, and may they aid us in our fight to end stigma and to end this war, because together we can.